In this video, we're going to talk about the PreWrite folder in the Natural Sciences unit. In course content, you want to go to the Natural Sciences unit where you'll find the PreWrite folder, and there's just one assignment in here to complete, which is the outline for your Natural Sciences essay. You'll want to click on the document, download that document, fill it out, and then upload your filled out document to the Dropbox for grading. Here is the outline that you're going to fill out. First, it asks you to summarize the local issue from the article that you chose. Because this is an introduction paragraph, you only want to have maybe 4 to 5 sentences total, which includes a thesis statement. Now, because we are introducing our essay with a summary, which is content coming from a location, we have to also document that summary. Because your summary is going to be a few sentences long, it's best to show where the summary begins and also where the summary ends. You can do this by having an introductory clause or phrase at the beginning of your summary and then your documentation at the end of the summary. So it can look something like this. So I begin my writing with the title of the article to show where I'm getting the information from, and then I can spend a few sentences summarizing the content of that article, particularly the promising and disturbing issues that are present. And at the end of that summary, I put my documentation for the article to show where it begins and also where it ends. After that, I can provide my thesis statement. It should, in the thesis, talk about the disturbing aspect and the promising aspect. So when you craft your thesis statement, which will be at the end of your introduction, you want to make sure that you have both the concepts for your disturbing and your promising idea in one sentence together. Once you get to body point 2, this is where you're going to talk about the disturbing aspect. Now, you don't have to write full sentences because it is an outline. You can just provide notes, or if you want to write full sentences, you can. That's entirely up to you. But first, you have to present the factor from your article that is the disturbing issue. Once I've got my disturbing issue listed, I can then give content from my article that shows or proves that this was a problem. Make sure that you add your documentation to show where your examples are coming from. If this is coming from my base soundings article, then I need to provide the documentation for that. Or it can come from a database article. So if you have your database article included in this section, then you want to also document that. So make sure it's clear on your outline where your examples are coming from. Also remember that you should paraphrase as much as possible in your own words. Do not include quotes unless you absolutely have to. If you cannot rephrase something because it's a lot of numbers or statistics and you have to quote that, then that's fine. But if you do a quote, then you have to adjust your documentation as shown in the APA notes that I provided you. Just to note, one other thing you have to keep in mind is that you want to make sure you credit things accurately. So let's say I'm working on my section 2 and I want to include some paraphrase content from my article. But in the article, the content was not originally by Smith. It could be that when I'm reading Smith's article, Smith gives information that he took from a book by Dr. Trevor. Now, who do I give credit to? Do I give credit to Smith or do I give credit to Dr. Trevor? Well, the way to handle this is to first in your sentence or in your example note who the original content came from. But when you document it from where you read it from. You don't have to go backwards and find Dr. Trevor's original book. So here's how you would handle a situation like that, and you might have to do this on your outline. You give credit to whoever originated the information. You can also note where they come from or what organization or university they work for. It shows that they have credentials. And then paraphrase the content. But when you do the in-text citation, you give the citation for wherever you read that from. So you don't have to backtrack to find where Richard Trevor originally published that work. I don't know where he originally said that, but I do know that I read it from Smith's article on base soundings. So you might have to do something like this on your outline and in your essay as well. For the third point, you're going to do the promising aspect. So you'll introduce the promising concept that you read about, and then you have to provide your examples and document where those examples came from. Now, do remember that at this point, you're going to need to find at least one source from the college database that you have to present in either the disturbing section or the promising section. Where you put that database source is up to you. The source has to be obviously on the topic, but it doesn't necessarily have to be about Tampa Bay. For instance, if my article talked about different types of science that were being used to fight red tide, maybe I would find in the database an article about that type of science. Okay, or other scientific discoveries that are being made to reduce red tide in coastal areas. So wherever you are using your database source, you need to first place your notes there, and then you have to document it. If you want to use more than one database source, that's perfectly fine, but one minimum, at the minimum, is required for this assignment. Here at the bottom for the conclusion, you can simply list out the main points one more time, or if you want to write 4 to 5 sentences in the conclusion section, you can do that. Finally, in the references section, you have to provide all of your resources. There should be obviously a minimum of 2 because you'll have your original article and at least one database source. When you're doing your references, remember the database will often make the source citations for you. Usually they come out correct, but you might want to have them checked just to be sure, and you can email me with questions at any time. Also remember that when you place your references together, they go in alphabetical order, not in the order that you use them. Once you've completed that part, you can save your work and upload it to the Dropbox for grading.